They say that these woodlands contain the path to paradise itself. It's been a long way to reach these mythical gardens. My knees are scraped and bloodied from the various thorns nipping at my legs along the path. Snakes and sirens were attempting to seduce me with their allure, but I refused to heed their calling. I was pure at heart, unspoiled by all temptation and evil. But my path was blocked by something swaying back and forth from a tree. I looked at it closely. All I could make out was a face with long black hair with some dark-colored stubble leading down its chin. Its head was cast down with closed eyes. It was a dead man, hanging from a tree. I walked closer to it in disbelief and fear. What would a hanged man be doing here on the trail of heaven? I looked at its face when it suddenly jerked its head up towards me, and I jumped back in shock. The man opened his eyes, blank and pitiless, before he turned his gaze upon me. He opened his mouth to speak, his message quiet and choked, and whispered this:
"Perfection is the great abyss. Leave now, lest you share my fate. A ghost dangling at heaven's gate."
With his warning spoken, the dead man hung idle once more. I tried to speak to him, confused and distraught about what he meant by a punishment, but I received no further response from him. I looked at him with confused frustration in response to his equivocation. What was there to fear about paradise? I certainly am not on the wrong path. I was free of all man's sins and malice. Surely they would let me pass. Maybe the man was a sinner and was being punished for trying to reach grace? Without heeding the deceased man's warning, I started to walk past him, impelled by curiosity pertaining to his cryptic prophecy. Surely there was nothing to fear. I walked through the sycamores and the blushes, my knees scraped once more from the wild, torturous prickles, feeling something not unlike that of 1,000 tiny quills of a porcupine seeping into my legs. I can only hope that whatever lied at the end of this path would be worth it. I disregarded the serpent's temptations and trickery, and walked past the trees into a clearing, and found it at last. The pearl doors. I slowly walked towards them with caution, remembering what the man who spoke to me had warned. The doors held a latch. There was a gate aside them. I held onto the gate and looked through to see the inside of divinity before going inside. The view was marvelous. Inside there were large grass fields, aligned with a graceful night sky. The stars shone brightly around the blue orb that was Earth itself. I looked around and was awestruck at its divine, stunning beauty. I kept looking through and through at its elegance, but one thing troubled me greatly. There was not a single person inside. With a small amount of hesitation, I wrapped my hand around the latch of the doors carefully. I tried opening it, foolishly expecting it to simply open with a gentle pull, but it didn't budge. I tried pulling harder, and the doors stood firm in utter defiance. I finally pulled with all my might and suddenly fell back to the ground. I looked at my hand, and it held the latch inside my palm, but the doors remained unopened. I cursed under my breath and held onto the bars futilely. I tried shaking angrily at the gate, looking inside, sobbing at the fact that paradise was not letting me in. That was when I saw a flash of fire as the gate suddenly began to burn. I screamed in pain and looked at my hands holding the gate, horrifically charred and burned. I ran into the orchids in newfound fear and terror at this hellish heaven. I came across a waterfall and dived in quickly to ease off the pain and washed off my wounds in the water, gagging at the sight of loose burnt flesh coming off. That was when the screaming began. 1,000 different voices, male and female of every age and in between, writhing in agony. They were moaning. I looked around and saw many in funeral pall, while others simply hung from the trees. I counted the leaves in one tree, the largest while covering my ears. I then counted the trail of dead bodies and found the two numbers to be matching. All of the different voices were crying out for one thing: a second chance. They wanted to escape the woods. I tried covering my ears, but to no avail. They beckoned to me to save them, to guide them onto the path of redemption. I backed up and hit the trunk of the tree that I counted off earlier, and something lowered itself down in front of me. An empty noose. With a swift movement, it wrapped itself around my neck suddenly. Its pull was that of a lover's, lifting me mother gently off of the ground. It was such a soothing feeling, that of which a lover wrapped their arms around your neck. Soon my legs began to dangle uselessly underneath, no longer standing. I realized I was on the wrong path to immortality after all. My life started to transmute into all life. The pulling of my neck tightened slightly, and soon all vice and ill thoughts of mankind began to leave me behind, as my vision faded into the black nothingness.